God's isolation process is not something we often understand, especially when we are in the midst of it. It can feel lonely, painful, and confusing. But one of the reasons God isolates us before blessings is because He wants to prepare us for what is to come. In these times of separation, God works on our hearts, molding and shaping us into individuals who are ready to carry the weight of the blessings He is preparing for us. This isolation is not punishment, but a divine preparation for something greater. When God isolates you, it is His way of refining your character. In the busy world, it's easy to get distracted by external influences, relationships, and opinions. We often allow these things to shape our identity and influence our decisions. During isolation, God strips away these distractions so that you can focus solely on Him. He desires to teach you who you truly are, beyond the labels and expectations of others. This is a time to understand your own worth and potential through His eyes, not through the eyes of the world. Isolation allows God to work on the aspects of your life that need healing and transformation. You may not even realize it, but there are areas within your heart that need attention. Wounds that need to be healed, fears that need to be overcome, or habits that need to be broken. God uses isolation as a time to work deeply within you, addressing these hidden places that you may have ignored or avoided. It's not a comfortable process, but it is necessary. Just like a diamond undergoes pressure and heat to be refined, you are being prepared to shine in ways you never imagined before. Furthermore, isolation teaches you to rely on God fully. In the absence of other people and external resources, you are forced to turn to Him for guidance, strength, and sustenance. It's in these moments that you truly experience His presence and realize that He is all you need. When everything else falls away, you learn that God's love, wisdom, and provision are more than enough. This strengthens your faith and helps you develop a deeper dependency on Him. And once you experience His faithfulness in isolation, you will be better equipped to handle the blessings He has for you when they arrive. During these times, God is also teaching you the importance of patience. It's easy to want things to happen on our timetable, but God's timing is perfect. He knows when we are truly ready to handle the blessings He has in store. The waiting period during isolation is not wasted time, but a time to cultivate patience and trust in His process. You may feel restless or impatient, but it's in those moments of waiting that God works His most profound transformations within us. He is preparing us not only to receive the blessing, but also to manage it well when it arrives. The isolation also helps to protect you. Sometimes we are not yet ready for the environment or the relationships that will come with our blessings. God isolates us to keep us in a place where we can grow without interference or distraction. The world can be full of toxic influences and distractions, and in His wisdom, God knows that we need time away from these things to be strengthened and grounded. It's in isolation that we learn to build a strong foundation, one that will help us stand firm when the storms of life come, especially once our blessings arrive. Isolation is a process of spiritual growth where God transforms you from the inside out. As you grow, you develop a greater sense of self-awareness and a stronger connection to God's purpose for your life. It's in this space that you begin to see the bigger picture, understanding that everything happening is part of God's greater plan. By the time the blessings come, you will be spiritually and emotionally equipped to steward them with grace and wisdom. So while the process of isolation may seem challenging and even discouraging at times, remember that it is an essential step in God's plan for your life. It's during this period that He is preparing you for the blessings He has promised. You may not see it now, but when the time comes, you will look back and understand that every moment of isolation was worth it. The preparation you receive during these times will not only help you receive the blessings, but also maintain them and use them for His glory. God's isolation process is a crucial part of His plan to equip you for your future. During times of separation, God often creates space for you to experience personal growth and healing that would otherwise be difficult in the busyness of life. One of the most profound aspects of isolation is how it forces you to lean entirely on God. In these moments, when all outside distractions and influences fade away, it becomes clearer that He is your ultimate source of comfort, wisdom, and strength. When God isolates you, He's not simply pulling you away from the world, but rather pulling you closer to Him. This period allows you to develop a deeper sense of self-awareness. With fewer voices and distractions around you, you begin to discover who you truly are without the pressure of conforming to society's expectations. God wants you to understand your identity in Him. It's easy to become caught up in the expectations of others, in the need to please, or in the pursuit of worldly success. However, during times of isolation, God provides the space for you to step away from these distractions and rediscover your authentic self. Isolation also provides an opportunity to confront the areas in your life that may need healing. As you're distanced from the noise and the clutter of life, you can begin to reflect more deeply on your emotional and spiritual well-being. God uses these quiet moments to help you face unresolved issues or wounds from your past that need healing. Whether it's broken relationships, disappointments, or unhealed pain, isolation gives you the time and space to let God work on those deep places in your heart that you may have ignored. It's not easy to confront pain, but it's necessary for your healing and growth. God knows that healing is a process that requires time, attention, and focus. By isolating you, He creates the perfect environment for this type of transformation. In addition to healing, isolation also strengthens your faith and dependence on God. When you are isolated, you realize that there is no one else to turn to but Him. You learn that everything you need is found in God, and He is faithful to provide. During this time, you learn to trust Him fully. God wants you to rely on His strength and His wisdom, not on your own understanding or abilities. This deepening of trust is essential because it prepares you to step into your future with the confidence that God is in control no matter the challenges that come your way. The act of waiting during isolation is another powerful lesson. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to grow impatient and expect immediate results. Yet, in God's kingdom, waiting is a crucial part of the process. The Bible tells us that those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Waiting isn't wasted time. It's an active process of growing, trusting, and preparing. God's timing is always perfect, and His delays are not denials. During isolation, you learn the importance of patience, perseverance, and endurance. This waiting time strengthens your faith and helps you to rely on God's perfect timing rather than your own. It is in waiting that God prepares you for what is to come, ensuring that when the time is right, you are fully equipped to receive His blessings. During isolation, God is also working on refining your character. He uses this time to shape you into the person you need to become to handle the blessings He has prepared for you. The purpose of isolation is not to leave you in a state of loneliness or despair, but to refine you. Just as gold is refined by fire, you are being purified in the furnace of God's love and wisdom. Through this process, your character becomes stronger, more resilient, and more aligned with God's will. You begin to develop qualities such as patience, humility, and gratitude, which will serve you well as you step into the next season of life. Finally, isolation serves as a time for you to develop an intimate relationship with God. It's often in the quiet, still moments of solitude that we hear God's voice most clearly. When everything else is stripped away, we can focus entirely on Him. This closeness with God strengthens your relationship with Him, and you come to understand His heart more deeply. As you grow in intimacy with Him, you also become more attuned to His purpose for your life. You begin to sense His guidance more clearly and develop the confidence to follow His lead. knowing that He is always with you, even in the times of isolation. So, while isolation may feel uncomfortable and even discouraging at times, it is one of God's most powerful tools for your spiritual growth. It is during this time that you are able to hear from Him, heal from your past, build character, develop trust, and prepare for the blessings He has in store. Trust that though the isolation may feel like a season of waiting, it is in fact a season of preparation. The growth that occurs during this time will ensure that when God's blessings come, you are ready to receive them and use them for His glory. When God isolates you, He's not leaving you to fend for yourself in the wilderness. Instead, He is giving you the space to transform. This period of isolation is deeply purposeful in the way it shapes your spirit and heart. One of the most critical things that happens during isolation is God's deep work in refining you. He uses this time to deal with any hidden insecurities, doubts, or areas of your character that need to be purified. Just like a diamond being shaped and polished, you are being transformed into something much more beautiful and valuable. God wants to mold your heart so that you can reflect His love and grace more clearly in the world. Often we don't realize how much we need this refinement until we are in the quiet of isolation without the distractions of daily life. Our fast-paced world fills us with noise and often causes us to overlook or suppress the areas in our lives that require attention. We may go through life making excuses for bad habits, holding on to past hurts, or living in ways that are not aligned with God's perfect will. When we are isolated, there is nowhere else to turn but inward, where God's voice is more clearly heard, urging us to confront these things that He wants to heal in us. During this time, God can reveal areas of pride, bitterness, unforgiveness, or impatience that we may not even have recognized before. By isolating us, He creates the perfect conditions to go through a process of spiritual surgery, cutting away anything that would hinder us from stepping into the fullness of His blessing. This refining process may feel uncomfortable at times, but it is essential for your growth. It is in the crucible of isolation that you are able to develop qualities that are needed for the next season of your life. Patience, trust, humility, and gratitude are some of the character traits that are most powerfully refined in times of solitude. As you learn to trust God more deeply, you become more attuned to His voice and His ways. The more you submit to God's work in this period, the more you begin to see things from His perspective. You realize that the very challenges you face during isolation are part of His divine purpose, and they are shaping you for the future He has planned for you. In this season, God is teaching you how to wait upon Him. In a world where everything is instant, waiting is a lesson many of us struggle with. However, God knows that in order for us to receive His blessings in the fullness of time, we must first learn the art of waiting. During isolation, He calls us to wait with expectancy, knowing that His timing is perfect and His plans for us are far better than anything we could have imagined. Learning to wait on God requires faith, the faith that He knows what is best for us and that His delays are not denials. It is in the waiting that we learn to cultivate patience and resilience, knowing that every season of life serves a purpose and that God's plan for us is unfolding even when we don't see it. Another significant aspect of this isolation period is how it helps to strengthen your dependence on God. When everything else is removed, when the crowd is gone, and when your usual sources of comfort and support are no longer available, you are forced to rely on God alone. This is precisely what He desires, for us to understand that our strength comes from Him, and He is the source of all that we need. It is easy to be self-sufficient when life is going well and we are surrounded by support. However, isolation strips away those external comforts and forces us to recognize that without God, we can do nothing. It's in these moments of vulnerability that we learn to lean on Him with our whole hearts, trusting that He is our provider, healer, and sustainer. While isolation may feel like a time of lack, it is actually one of abundance. The abundance isn't in worldly possessions or external validation, but in the deeper connection with God that you develop during this time. You begin to realize that all you need is found in Him when you surrender yourself completely to God's will during this time of isolation. He will fill you in ways that the world never could. The peace, wisdom, and joy that come from an intimate relationship with God during isolation are priceless. In fact, you may find that your time alone with Him is more fulfilling than anything you could have hoped for when surrounded by distractions. As God continues to refine you, He also prepares you to walk in your calling. The isolation season is a time when God is not only cleansing you, but also preparing you for greater things. The dreams, the purpose, and the calling He has placed on your life are coming into alignment, but before He releases you into those blessings, He needs to know that you are spiritually, emotionally, and mentally ready. This preparation ensures that when your time to step into the fullness of His promises arrives, you will be ready to walk into it with strength, maturity, and wisdom. So while the isolation may seem lonely or discouraging at times, know that it is a process of transformation. It is God's way of refining you, strengthening you, and preparing you for the greatness that lies ahead. Embrace the process and trust that God is doing a deep, powerful work in you. The end result will be a person who is better equipped to live out the calling on their life, with a heart that reflects God's love and character. When God isolates you, it often comes with the intention of strengthening your faith in ways you never expected. This period, which may initially feel difficult or discouraging, is designed to build a deeper reliance on God's plan for your life. Many times we find ourselves striving to make things happen, pushing through obstacles with our own strength. However, during times of isolation, God places us in a position where we have no choice but to trust in His timing and plan. It's in these moments that we are taught the valuable lesson of letting go of our need to control every aspect of our lives and instead learning to rest in His sovereignty. Isolation becomes a sacred space where God calls us to surrender our will and align ourselves with His divine purpose. We often struggle with the idea of surrender because we feel that if we let go, we might lose control, or worse, lose the opportunity to accomplish our goals. But the truth is, when God isolates us, it's an invitation to go deeper, to seek His will more fervently, and to discover that His plan is far better than anything we could have imagined on our own. It's a time of learning to trust God, not just with our dreams and desires, but also with our very future. Instead of struggling to figure everything out on our own, God is calling us to trust that He has everything under control, even when we can't see the whole picture. The isolation you may be going through is not meant to punish you or leave you stranded. Rather, it is a process of spiritual growth where God can prepare you for the greater things He has in store. It's in this quiet, alone time that God has the opportunity to reveal parts of your heart and mind that need healing, transformation, or growth. Just as a seed needs time in the soil before it can sprout, God uses this time of solitude to plant deep roots in your soul that will later bear fruit. Your foundation is being strengthened so that when you step into your future, you can stand firm on the promises He has given you. During isolation, you may feel forgotten or overlooked. The world keeps moving forward, and everyone around you seems to be getting ahead. This can create feelings of inadequacy and even self-doubt. Yet God's isolation of you is not about leaving you behind. It's about preparing you for a time when you will be fully ready to fulfill your purpose. God knows what is ahead, and He wants to ensure that you are spiritually, emotionally, and mentally equipped to handle the blessings He is about to pour into your life. In His perfect timing, He will release you from this isolation, but only when you are fully ready to receive all that He has prepared for you. It's also important to recognize that isolation is not meant to be a permanent state. While it may feel long and at times discouraging, this period is temporary. God uses it as a season for refining and preparing, but it's always with the goal of bringing you into a place of greater purpose and blessing. The isolation you're experiencing is like a cocoon, and when God deems the time is right, He will allow you to emerge stronger, wiser, and more prepared for the future. Trust that God is working even in your waiting, and that this season will eventually give way to the greater things He has planned for you. Throughout the process of isolation, God is teaching you how to rely on Him in new ways. He is showing you that you are not alone, even when it feels like the world has forgotten you. During this time, your relationship with God can become richer and deeper than ever before. When everything else is stripped away, you begin to realize that your relationship with God is all you truly need. He is your constant, your source of peace, your comfort, and your strength. No matter how isolated or alone you may feel, you are never truly alone when God is by your side. In the isolation, God also teaches you to hear His voice more clearly. In the busyness of life, it can be easy to miss the subtle whispers of God's direction, but when you are isolated, you are forced to listen intently. It's in these moments that God speaks to you in a way that you couldn't have heard when you were caught up in the noise of everyday life. As you seek His presence, you will begin to discern His voice and direction more clearly. This is a critical aspect of your spiritual growth, as it prepares you to walk confidently in His will when He releases you from the season of isolation. What seems like a lonely, challenging period may actually be a time of divine positioning. God is positioning you to walk into His purpose for your life, and He knows that you need this time of isolation in order to grow into the person He is calling you to be. While it's tempting to want to rush through the isolation, remember that God's timing is perfect. He is preparing you for a future that will bring Him glory and fulfill the unique calling He has placed on your life. So, even though you may feel as though you're waiting indefinitely, be encouraged. Trust that God is working in you during this time, preparing you for something greater. When the time is right, He will release you from this period of isolation and allow you to step into the blessings that He has been preparing for you. Your growth, healing, and readiness are all part of the process. Take heart and rest in the knowledge that God's plans for you are far greater than any immediate circumstances, and His timing is always perfect. God's blessings are not random nor accidental, but meticulously planned for those who trust in His timing. When you go through a period of isolation, it might feel as though you're being left behind or overlooked. It's easy to compare your journey to others, watching them receive what you desire, wondering why they seem to be moving forward while you remain in a holding pattern. However, understanding that God's blessings are strategically placed and timed specifically for each person can help bring peace during these moments of waiting. One of the most critical aspects of God's plan is that He knows exactly what you need and when you need it. His blessings are always perfectly timed, aligned with the moment when you are ready to handle them. This is why isolation can sometimes feel uncomfortable. It's a necessary process to prepare you for the magnitude of blessings that God has in store. If blessings were to come too soon before you've developed the strength, wisdom, or character to handle them, they might overwhelm you or even cause harm. But God's love and understanding of your needs lead Him to withhold certain blessings until you are spiritually and emotionally equipped to handle them with grace. Another reason why God isolates you before blessing you is that it allows you to refine your desires. In times of waiting, God takes the opportunity to purify your heart, focusing your attention away from worldly desires and towards His eternal plans. When we're constantly surrounded by distractions, our desires often become muddied, and we begin to want things that may not be in alignment with God's best for us. Isolation, however, removes those distractions and brings clarity. It's during these times of solitude that God can shape our desires into something that reflects His will. You may find that your wants evolve, or perhaps what once felt urgent becomes less significant. This refinement process is essential for receiving blessings that align with God's purpose. Additionally, isolation can serve as a testing ground. During these times, you are given the chance to demonstrate your faithfulness to God, even when no one is watching or when circumstances seem to make His promises seem distant. It's easy to remain faithful when things are going well, but it's during isolation, when you're feeling the weight of the weight, that your trust in God is truly tested. Are you willing to wait on His timing even when everything around you suggests that you should take matters into your own hands? This is where true faith and obedience are forged. The way you handle isolation determines the level of blessing you are prepared to receive. If you can trust God in your waiting, He knows that you will be ready to steward the blessings that are coming your way. Isolation also offers an opportunity for deep spiritual growth. When God isolates you, it's not only about waiting for the external blessings you desire, but also about the internal transformation that occurs. During this time, you learn to depend less on your own strength and more on God's power. Your relationship with God deepens as you rely on Him for provision, guidance, and comfort. You begin to recognize that His presence is the true blessing, and the other gifts He has for you are just additional expressions of His love. The deeper your roots in Him grow, the stronger and more resilient you will be when the blessings arrive. This spiritual maturity equips you to handle the responsibilities that come with the blessings and ensures that you won't take them for granted. God's delays are not denials, but divine preparations. As much as we might want blessings to come immediately, God often uses these seasons of waiting to shape us into the person He wants us to be. Think of the story of Joseph, who was isolated and left in prison for years before God elevated him to a position of leadership. It was during that time of isolation that Joseph's character and faith were solidified. God knew that Joseph was not only waiting for a blessing, but was also in need of inner growth, maturity, and a deepened trust. This is often the case for us as well. Our timing and God's timing are not always aligned, but we must trust that His timing is perfect and that He is working all things together for our good. Finally, isolation before blessings is a way for God to protect you from the pitfalls of premature success. Sometimes receiving blessings too early can lead to pride, self-reliance, or complacency. If we're not ready for success, it can destroy us rather than build us up. By keeping us isolated for a time, God ensures that when the blessings come, we are equipped not just to receive them, but also to steward them wisely. This time of isolation allows you to build strength, character, and humility, all of which are necessary for handling God's blessings in a way that honors Him. So, while isolation can feel challenging and uncomfortable, it is a necessary and beautiful process. It's during this time that God strengthens your faith, clarifies your desires, and deepens your relationship with Him. This period of waiting allows you to grow into the person who can handle the blessings God has for you. When the time comes, and God knows it will, He will bless you in ways you never thought possible. These blessings will come at the right time, in the right way, and with the right purpose, perfectly aligned with His plan for your life. Trust in His timing and know that the season of isolation is just a part of the process that is leading you to greater things. Isolation can often feel like a harsh and unnerving experience, especially when it feels like the world around us is moving forward and we are left behind. However, it's essential to recognize that during these times of isolation, God is working behind the scenes in ways we cannot always see. He is not abandoning us, but is in fact setting us up for a higher purpose. The sixth reason why God isolates you before blessing you is that He wants to protect you from the distractions and pitfalls of the world. In a society that constantly pulls our attention in multiple directions, it can be hard to focus on what truly matters. When we are isolated, we have the opportunity to clear our minds and hearts, realign ourselves with God's purpose, and allow Him to lead us without the interference of outside voices or influences. This is a vital aspect of spiritual growth, being able to hear God clearly and follow His direction without distractions. God knows that the blessings He has planned for you are often so grand that they can quickly attract attention, both positive and negative. The world may want to influence your decisions, or people in your life may attempt to steer you away from the path God has set for you. In times of isolation, God can shield you from such distractions, giving you space to hear His voice and not the voices of the crowd. This moment is a preparation phase where God ensures that when the blessing does come, you will be able to accept it with wisdom and discernment. Without this isolation, you may find yourself misled by the opinions or pressures of others, leading to decisions that are not in alignment with God's will. Moreover, isolation is a time of self-reflection. God often uses these moments to help us look inward, examining the state of our hearts. Are we ready for the responsibility that comes with the blessing? Do we possess the humility, gratitude, and character necessary to handle what is about to be entrusted to us? This inward process cannot happen if we are surrounded by distractions. When God isolates you, it is His way of allowing you the time and space to work through any insecurities, fears, or doubts you may have that could hinder your future success. Through this process, you come to understand that the real blessing is not in the material things you seek, but in the development of your character and relationship with God. Another important reason God isolates you before blessing you is that He knows how easy it is to become dependent on others or on the world's systems rather than on Him. Isolation forces you to rely on God completely. In a world where instant gratification is the norm and solutions are often just a click away, God is calling you to learn to lean on Him for provision, guidance, and comfort. During times of solitude, you are given the opportunity to strengthen your faith in a way that is not possible when you are surrounded by distractions. As you rely on God more fully, you begin to experience His peace and presence in ways that shape your understanding of who He is and what He can do in your life. Isolation also teaches you the value of patience. In a society that is constantly rushing from one task to the next, God allows you the space to slow down. He wants you to learn how to wait on His timing, to trust that His plans are far better than anything you could have imagined. Waiting can be one of the most challenging aspects of isolation, but it is also one of the most crucial. Through waiting, you build endurance and perseverance, qualities that are essential for success. The blessing that is coming your way will require patience, and it is through isolation that you learn to master this virtue. Furthermore, God isolates you before blessing you to refine your focus. Often we become distracted by the things of the world, success, material possessions, or even the approval of others. When God isolates you, He gives you the opportunity to fix your eyes on Him alone. It's a time for you to renew your purpose and align your desires with His will. This focus is essential because the blessings that are on the way will require a clear and unwavering direction. With a sharpened focus, you are better able to discern God's voice and will, ensuring that when the time comes, you will walk in the fullness of the blessings He has prepared for you. God's isolation before blessings is also a way for Him to build resilience in you. It's easy to become discouraged when things don't happen as quickly as we want, but in isolation, God teaches you how to remain strong in the face of adversity. It is during this time that your faith is tested, refined, and made stronger. You learn that the joy and fulfillment you seek are not found in external circumstances, but in your relationship with God. This strength will carry you through the blessings that will come because you will have built a foundation of trust and resilience that cannot be shaken by life's challenges. Finally, God isolates you before blessing you to give you the space to develop a deeper level of gratitude. When you are in isolation, you become more aware of the little things that God provides, His daily provision, His unceasing love, and His constant faithfulness. As you reflect on the blessings that God has already given you, your heart becomes filled with gratitude. This gratitude positions you to receive even greater blessings because it shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have. It is a reminder that God is already working in your life and the best is yet to come. In conclusion, isolation before blessings is not a punishment but a preparation. It is during these times of solitude that God does His most important work in your life. He helps you grow, heal, refine your desires, strengthen your faith, and build resilience. Trust that God is using these moments to prepare you. When the time is right, He will pour out His blessings in ways that exceed your expectations, and you will be ready to embrace them with gratitude, wisdom, and a heart full of trust.